Hey friends, welcome back. So this is going to be my first crafting video and I'm going to show you how I make these cards for some of the ladies at my church. Now, this is one of my first cards many years ago. I did have some embossing on there, but this next one's going to be one from Mother's Day this year. So as you can see, I've evolved a little bit. We've got some detail and some layering, so yeah, a little different. And these are some cards from in between. Now this one has some die cuts. I got a little bit of coloring in there. I used color pencils to color that. There's a whimsical card. She is made with die cuts, and this was a Christmas card I made a few years back. And then these are bookmarks that I make, and these are made with a stamp, and then I hand color those again with colored pencils. And this card is, I used an embossing folder, so you use that to get this raised look. Then I put a stamp and I colored that with colored pencils. And on the inside of this one I added a little embossing. So yeah, I've evolved over the years. But this is the die set that I use. It's a nesting die set. This is probably one of my most used dies. I use these on all my cards usually. It's hard to see on this one, but the edges are, they have that little edging on it. This one does as well. Has that stitched look. So does this one. I'm thinking I might need to switch up a little bit. And the cards that I'm making today I'm going to use this one right here. So, yep. And here's the other tools I'm going to use. I'm going to use that heat gun. I'm going to use some embossing powder, some watermark ink, and my static pad. That's very important, and I'll explain to you a little bit later about that. And then this stamping machine, or whatever you want to call it, it's called Stamp Perfect, but it's a positioner, and I'll explain that to you a little bit later as well. But that's if you're making a lot of cards, this is a very important tool to have. I use it all the time. And then this is called a die cut machine. It's little, just put it in there and crank it up, and that's how we get our little squares. Now they do have electric ones, but yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, so I went with this one. And yeah, so I had to cut out each individual card, and there you go. So I'm just going to do a bunch of these up, and I'm going to make my cards with these. And I'm going to use a bunch of different colors, and I didn't count how many. I just did up a bunch of different colors, and then I'm going to go ahead and make these stamps. And so here's how this machine works. You see where the stamp is right there? It's going to stay in that same place. And then I'm going to put my card right in the corner. Now I've already positioned it, so I know where it needs to go. Now these little magnets will hold the card in place so that it doesn't move around. And then the static pad, again, this is very important. Apparently, paper holds on to that embossing powder, so the static pad gets all the static off of the paper, so that when I put that embossing powder on there, it just goes where it needs to be. Now, this watermarking pad is what the embossing powder is going to stick to, and I'm going to show you how that works. So yeah, we just want to make sure that it gets evenly pressed and that our watermark ink is everywhere. And you can kind of see the outline there. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and, now this embossing powder and static pad, it's all just so messy. you're going to have this stuff everywhere. So, whatever works best for you, try to, keep your area clean. So what I did is I just put down just a piece of paper, and then I'm going to put the embossing powder over the ink. Okay, just shake it a little bit, put it back in there, and you want to give it a little thump, and that's to get all the excess embossing powder off of there. And then we're gonna go ahead and pour that back in there as well. And then we're going to take our heat gun. Now you want to warm this up for, a few seconds, because you need it to be pretty hot to work. Now with this color, it's going to be hard to tell, but you'll see later in a later video how this embossing powder works. But the heat activates the embossing powder, and it makes this little raised, shiny little coating on the paper, and it looks just like a professional looking card. It looks really good. I'm just going to put some back on there, put some heat on the back because it warps a little. But again, it's hard to see, it's hard to tell, but this is like, it's raised and it's a little shiny. And I mean, I like them. It's simple, and it just looks, it gives it like a professional look. It looks really good. It's hard to tell on this picture, but I'll show you in another video. But these are all the embossing powders I have. My favorite, what I always just go back to, is the white, because it looks so fresh and just crisp. But there's a lot of different colors. There's all of these. Now these I purchased, and I don't care about them. You get what you pay for. These were cheap ones, and I just don't like the way that they look. But there's different options with embossing powders, and just make sure that when you get one, that you use a quality one. Now I'm going to do this gold on black paper, so it's going to be a little bit, it'll be easier to see how this works. So I put the paper on the stamp machine just like I did the other one, and the process is the same. It's exactly the same. You're just using different colors. And I did use that static pad. Now, sometimes the embossing powder won't, come off like it's supposed to. So I'll use a little paintbrush to wipe off the excess. And there you go. You just kind of get those little pieces off, because once you put that heat on there, that embossing powder, it's permanent. It doesn't come off. But if you look at this one, you can see how it changes color once the heat activates the embossing powder. And if you look closely, you can see when it changes over. You see how it just kind of brightens up? That's what the embossing does. It just gives it a really, finished, professional, just elegant kind of look to me. And as you can see, yeah, the gold looks really, really pretty. I still like the white better, but the gold looks nice. And so, yep, here's all my cards. I made several. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand these out randomly to some of the ladies at my church. Now, I challenged myself to give it to at least 10 women that I don't know. And then the rest I'll give out to women I do know. But there's the silver embossing powder. And that's the gunmetal colored embossing powder. So, yeah, there's different options. But again, my favorite is the white. It just pops. It's crisp. And the white it looks good on any color. So yeah, those are my favorites. All right. So we got those all wrapped up, and I'm gonna hand these out to the ladies at church tomorrow. So guys, like, comment, and share, and come back for my next craft video.